Okay, so welcome back. For the next hour, we have two presenters talking. We've got Nicholas Yu from UCLB and Dr. Ruth Weir from SPERO. So Nicholas joined UCLB in 2020 as an associate business manager, where he is responsible for supporting commercialization efforts in computer science and physical science innovations from UCL. He's working on licensing deals and spinouts. Prior to UCLB, Nicholas held senior engineering roles in materials science, early stage in San Francisco and London, and supported venture accelerators in the US. Nicholas received his MS from the University of Pennsylvania and ABS from UC Berkeley. Following on from there will be Ruth Weir from SPERO, and Ruth Weir did her PhD in neuroscience at UCL and is now back working as an entrepreneurship advisor in the Innovation and Enterprise Department. She will tell the story of how she landed this role and the opportunities available to you. So thank you very much for your talk. Please do begin.
Hey everyone, just give me a second to share my screen. Okay, can you see that? I'll assume you can.
Yes, we can see it.
Cool. So hey everyone, what is up? Really good to be here, talk about entrepreneurship at UCL. But also introduce you to UCL Business and how we are helping innovation from UCL. So thanks for the introduction. So my name is Nicholas. I've been supporting UCL Business for about a year and 2 months now, focusing on a lot of the research innovation from computer science, but also a little bit of the other engineering departments because my background in chemistry and chemical engineering and material science. So I will start off with just a quick intro on me. So as mentioned, I'm an associate business manager with UCL Business. These are the departments I support. A couple other things I work in the startup and entrepreneurship world, but I also mentor and advise for some companies in the UCL Hatchery incubator, which I think someone else will talk about. I was a venture fellow for Berkeley Skydeck, which is an accelerator in the California area. Working on, again, early stage startups and things of that nature. And also spend some time outside of work volunteering as a judge for various startup competitions and things like that. So, why do I care about tech transfer and early stage companies and spinouts? In my previous life, I was an early engineer in a UC Berkeley academic spinout. It was really, really interesting working on smart glass. And then I came to London and worked at a battery startup that was founded by 3 Imperial academics. And so I've really enjoyed working kind of in the first 24 months of the birth of a company and helping it go from like a lab stage and a university stage to a real life breathing entity that can make impact in the real world. So that's what I'm really passionate about. So I'm really excited to be here talking to you about all this stuff as well. So an intro to what we do as a company. UCL has a lot of research. There's a lot of brain power with all of you here, but there's always been this gap in commercialization between research and the real working product. There's a lot of different steps that need to be taken as we go forward with there. And so that's kind of where we step in. We are the commercial company for UCL and our related UCL NHS trusts, and it's our remit to commercialize research from all these entities. We are a separate company from UCL. We have about 50 employees right now, and we do a handful of different activities, translational activities to help get from lab to market. And this involves funding, which I'll talk about. Another part of this activity is UCL Consultants, which we're not part of, but they also help to bring IP to the real world in different ways. Entrepreneurship classes, courses, I think SPERO will cover that as well. So how we work, we have business managers like myself and directors overseeing and embedded within different departments of the university. We work with academics to look at their technologies and their research and really explore together, like if there are greater commercial implications than beyond the research that they're doing right now. So we'll help out with market evaluation, setting up meetings and conversations with key opinion leaders and seeing how we could protect technologies in terms of copyright or patents and seeing how else we can grow the technology. and hopefully develop the technology, find industrial partners, commercial partners to add value, and hopefully get to a point where it's ready to be in the market. And so the two main ways that we do this commercial activity is through either licensing, product licensing, software licensing, where we can agree to license it to a larger company to exploit the UCL innovation. Or the second way is through spin-out companies. And so we have a pretty strong track record in creating successful spin-out companies. Rian mentioned Satalia, which I'll also touch on again, and that was a really recent acquisition, and just a really cool way to go from research into a spin-out company into an exit that's really beneficial for the academic, but also the department and UCL as a whole. So we have these core missions, 5 core missions. Ultimately, we want to create more value for UCL IP and do more with what we have, just to help economic and societal impacts. And at the same time, we want to deliver these projects that can ultimately bring back revenue to UCL so that we can just foster a good entrepreneurial environment, help fund more commercial activity, research, translational research activity, and educational matters and things like that. It's very good for like the company and university image to promote entrepreneurism. And as a company, we help UCL de-risk all their projects. UCL legally is a registered charity, and a lot of the commercial things that we're trying to do wouldn't fall within a typical charity legal definition. And so we help by taking all the commercial risk and responsibility for everything that's commercially driven. So the first way that I'll talk about is kind of the financing and funding, and it's like the first check into a company if you were to create a spin out based on your UCL research. I work very closely with the UCL Tech Fund. It's a £100 million early stage fund that's dedicated to investing in UCL-backed IP-powered research projects that could have larger potential. And so the funding is managed by Albion VC, which is a venture capital fund in London. They have about $1 billion under management, and about 100 million goes to us. So again, like all companies are very, very unique. No one funding fits all, like no one size fits all, but I've kind of bucketed them into 3 main things, and this is how they also display it on their website. But if you have an idea and you want to bring it to UCL Tech Fund and apply for some kind of funding and you're not really sure where to go, these are 3 main ways to go forward with. So the first is proof of concept funding. At this stage, maybe you have a prototype or you want to build a prototype to show that something works, gather some data or obtain some expert guidance. This is the kind of funding that would fit into that bucket. So it's about £100,000. It will be for a set amount of time, and the goal is to show something by the end of that 100,000 that you have something that you could do something with that technology proof of concept. We'll fund up to £1 million for licensing funding. And so this is developing, after your proof of concept technology, that you have a point where it can be licensed to an industrial partner. And then the third one is spin-out funding, which could be up to 2.5 million, but this again is very, very flexible depending on the situation. So this is where you have like a proof of concept technology that has many applications, demonstrated working product, and very, very clear idea for future product as well. So to date, for the last, I think this is the last 2 years, we've got £41 million invested in projects, 32 proof of concept investments, 21 portfolio companies, 13 licensing projects. So very, very fast moving, deploying a lot of capital, and always looking to deploy more. So the first close of the fund was in 2020. That was for 50 million, and we're looking to close the next chunk in the coming year or 2. Sharon, just give me a shout if there are any questions, because I'm not actually looking at the chat right now or the Q&A.
Of course, no problem.
Thank you. So 3 different examples I wanted to talk about. They're all at very different stages, just to give you a flavor of the kind of companies that are coming out in the last 5 years, but also all the different stages they're at. So the first is Nozzle, which is an AI company started by Professor Jun Wang, using retail and media data from Amazon APIs to help Amazon customers with their like conversion rate, sales, ads on Amazon, things like that. So today they have about 100 different customers, and they recently raised 2 million from the tech fund, in addition to other investors in November to continue their growth. So that's one example of quite an early company. Satalia is the one that Riam mentioned, started by Professor David Hume, who started at UCL actually as a PhD student, and then a full-time researcher at UCL. At the time, he was working on mathematical optimization techniques, which became applied in scheduling. So he and the company got a lot of paying customers like Tesco and DFS and Woolworths in Australia to do like delivery optimization for their for their delivery fleets. And then they started another product based on a similar technology called Satalia Workforce, which is basically optimizing people in a workforce. And they had some customers like PwC and BT who were using it to schedule hours for their staff. So they were accompanied by WPP just about a month ago, actually. So a really good example of how a student, from a PhD student, can turn to a full-time academic and then start a company and be embedded in the company, but also in UCL the whole time. Matrix Mill, when was this? 2018, started by Professor Gabe Rostow. He was working on machine learning models to do things like video annotation. I think the first applications he was using it for was traffic sign identification for some companies. They were doing some consulting for companies, and then soon after they were approached by Niantic, who acquired the company and all the patents. So this is a unique case that we had patents associated with the software technology. But there was a strong business case, which is why we filed the patent. But the company was purchased and the whole team was acqui-hired into Niantic. And so now the staff, the two founders, and the three founders, sorry, they work part-time with UCL and part-time with Niantic, if I remember correctly. So again, great example of how work can be split between two things, and just provide a really good relationship and bridge between Niantic and UCL. Yeah, so those are three companies I wanted to highlight. And there's been a lot of different debate on Twitter recently that I've seen where they talk about the equity amount that universities take between European and UK universities and the US. And I will say that in UCL, we are trying very hard to support the spinouts as much as possible, to make it as frictionless and straightforward as possible, with standard terms to spin out a company, which is more similar to the US model. So a lot of computer science software is non-patentable. And so this model, Portico Ventures, is mainly for computer science ventures. And so the main point is that if you have an idea based on UCL intellectual property, then we'll support that by spinning out and providing an exclusive and royalty-free license to the company in exchange for 5 to 10% of the company. And yeah, so 5% is more for like if you don't need any support from UCL or UCLB, you just want to take the IP and do your own thing. And it's more like 5%, which is very similar to the US model. If you need a little bit of support from UCLB or UCL or anything, it could be like advice or space or kind of like any kind of support that you can think of, then it would be looking more at 10%. But the point is that we're trying to make this a more standardized method to help make it more frictionless to start companies. So that's the main chunk that I want to talk about for spinouts. I'll pause for a quick second if there are anything else, any other questions on spinouts. If not, I'll move on to licensing. Oops. Okay, I'll talk about licensing. So this is the other bulk of work that we do. It's in IP licensing. With the background, the main things that we work on are patents and copyrights. Patents related to novel, non-obvious inventions from your work, copyright, which is related to written work, which includes software. And we don't really deal much with trademarks and trade secrets. So as PhD researchers, you'll be generating a lot of IP and could have commercial value to other companies or projects. And so there are things to think about when you want to protect them before licensing or distributing to make public in order to assert control, but also limit your risk in the real world. And so what we always try to advise is just have a think before you release something on GitHub, which is open to the public. You know, once it's open to the world, it's effectively open forever. So, you know, things to think about if you are thinking about licensing something to the outside. It's, you know, if you want to license it to one person or you want to license it to as many people as you want, whether you want to charge it for free or have it as a paid license, you know, what they can do with the license versus what they can't do. Maybe eventually you want to commercialize your software, and therefore, is it the right decision to put it on GitHub today? These are all things that we encourage PhD students and academics to think about before they put it on GitHub. I understand that all software is variable on a case-by-case basis, and we worked on a whole different spectrum of projects and computer science software. So we're always very excited about new innovations and looking at different ways that we can protect future innovation. So these are a few images from our Express licensing platform called Zip. It was developed within UCLB as a side project, which became a larger project. But it's basically an e-commerce platform for licensing technologies. So in the past, you know, we identified a huge pain point, which was a large negotiation process where companies would want to license a piece of UCL software, for example, and then every single license agreement, like in terms of legal documents, was custom written. And so it was very, very time consuming, very like human capital intensive. And this is essentially a way to streamline this and standardize all contracts, make the licensing process super simple, like an Amazon, just simple checkout if you want to get a license for something. So we've had a lot of good success licensing a lot of technologies, not just computer science, on this platform. It's also spread to a lot of different universities in the UK, Europe, and the US, where they're adopting this version of Zip into their own universities. So we're actually also working on a computer science version of Zip, which is mainly for academic licensing. And so this is kind of the platform I was talking about when, you know, CS academics can post their code somewhere which could be licensed non-commercially for academic purposes, if you want to link it to a paper, for example. But also to protect it. So if you did want to think about commercializing it in the future, that option would be open. So our goal is to offer this platform just to create flexibility for all academics who want to store their software and technology somewhere, but to control their licensing terms in the future and now. So yeah, happy to talk more about this if you have more questions. And check out the website. Yeah. zip.uclb.com. So again, I'll go through 3 licensing stories in the last 3 years. The first one you might have heard of, it was in the press quite a bit last year, but the UCL Ventura product, which was about UCL professors from mechanical engineering, UCLH, the medicine department, but also Mercedes-Benz. We all got together to develop these designs and then license it to about 2,000 manufacturers across the world. So it was actually quite amazing. They met in March last year when the COVID pandemic started, and they made a prototype within 100 hours. And yeah, had 10,000 devices manufactured for UK government by April. So very successful licensing project in a time of high need. A second one that I'm currently working on, a very, very early stage. It's currently in progress with the Anthony Steed group. He works on augmented and virtual reality. And this is a software that we actually patented because it had a link to some hardware as well. So they developed this technology, and we're working alongside them right now to work towards a licensing deal with an industrial partner. And hopefully that will happen in the coming years. Another example is Zacros, which is from the chemical engineering department, but is a piece of software. So I've included it in this presentation. But but he developed a tool. Mikhail developed a tool. He didn't want to put it on GitHub because he had the idea that he wanted to start a company in the future. So he put it on Zip with a protected academic license for purely academic licensing and special commercial purposes as well. And then eventually in 2018, he decided that he wanted to do commercial licensing. And so we've kicked that off. And it's one of our most successful commercial licenses, well, academic and commercial licenses to date. One thing I forgot to mention, that the benefit of using a platform like Zip instead of GitHub as well is because you get to request information from the licensee, so you can see like where they're coming from, who they are, what projects they're doing, who their PIs are, and what they're working on. And you get a lot more control and visibility on what's happening to your software once it's downloaded. The last thing that I want to talk about is a new initiative called UCL Computer Science Idea to Opportunity Labs. It's a bootcamp series that we are experimenting with to help train and educate academics with business training, specifically computer science academics. So we did the first trial a few weeks ago. Well, actually a few months ago. It was an 8-week bootcamp, once a week, an hour a week. We worked externally with a few different organizations. So we worked with these, UCL internal organizations, but also London Business School, Capital Enterprise, Portico Ventures, which is a venture builder, and just getting input from all these different players to help, see what it needs and what it takes for a UCL PhD computer science to take something from idea to market, and just helping the training on that way. So it was our first time trying it out this year, 2021. We are hoping for it to be a regular annual thing, along with other activities along the year. Whether they're week-long activities or like one-day activities, we're trying to experiment with a whole host of different ideas. So do check out the website. I think there's a sign-up link just to put your name down and receive these regular emails. I can send these slides out to Sharon when it's done. But just, check it out, and always open to feedback as well. Okay, so this is my last slide, well, second last slide. Quick overview of our annual report. This is our numbers from 2020 to 2021, October to October. A lot of numbers, so I won't go through all of them, but the main ones I wanted to highlight is that we have 79 spinouts in our portfolio, all at different stages. Some exited, some starting out this year. We had 6 new spinouts this year and 5 exits on NASDAQ, coming up to almost $1 billion. These were all pharmaceutical companies, just so you know. But as mentioned, there was Italia this year, a high-profile exit from the engineering department, but also Sensi, which I haven't mentioned, which is another successful exit. We had 7.9 million invested through the UCL Tech Fund into projects of all sorts, 2,000 plus COVID licenses, 48 new patents filed, 233 existing patent families. So, just to give you an idea of the scale that we're engaging with UCL, and hopefully 2021, 2022, I will see some of your names up there in terms of invention disclosures, patents, and things like that. UCLB is growing and increasing and doing well, and just hope to engage with UCL as much as possible. So I understand that was a lot of information, but in summary, there's many ways we can help. There's no one size fits all, and we kind of help wherever you need. We'll just try our best, and we're always learning as well. We don't know everything, and we will be there to learn with you as well. But just a snapshot of the things that I've talked about in this presentation, and hopefully more. So that's the last slide of my presentation. Here's my contact details if you want to contact me. And yeah, I have about 5 minutes before SPERO takes over. So if you have any questions, drop them. But if not, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. So Ruth, if you're ready to go, you can start a little bit early. Ruth Weir is talking about SPERO. She's from Innovation and Enterprise. So over to you, Bruce.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm a bit of a late addition to the agenda on this whole program, so I don't actually have any slides to share with you. So you get the privilege of seeing my face for the next 25 minutes. But from all my learnings over the last 18 months, I actually think that that is more engaging if you see me talking to you rather than have a series of slides on your screen. Well, that's at least what I tell myself. So, as Sharon kindly mentioned in my introduction, I, like you, did my PhD here at UCL. It was in neuroscience, and it was an absolute roller coaster. But while I was doing my PhD, I was convinced I was going to be an academic, as many students are. And I am not here to put you off if you are interested in staying in academia. However, I do want to share some of the reality by sharing some numbers and some stats from data collected by the Royal Society. And just 3.5% of PhD students in STEM subjects go on to have permanent research contracts in higher education institutions in the UK. It's a really small number. So it's our role as a university to equip you guys to be able to pivot into any role that arises in your future. So as Sharon mentioned, I'm an entrepreneurship advisor at UCL now. I did 5 years of postdoc after my PhD, and I reached the end of my academic journey. It wasn't planned. I maxed out the amount of time that I could be a postdoc in the University of California system, and my visa type also ran out for working in the States at that time. And so I kind of reached a crossroads in my academic journey, and I felt I wasn't ready to take that huge next step into which would have been to start looking at positions where I would have been running my own lab. And so I did what I do best, and I ran away and I went traveling for 3 months around Africa, hoping for some sort of divine inspiration as to what my next move would be in terms of my career. No divine inspiration came, although I had a wicked time, and I landed back in the UK with a bit of a bump and not knowing what the hell I was doing going forward. And there then started a period of about a year where I was applying for lots of roles. I was in a very privileged position in terms of I went back to my mum and dad's house and stayed there and lived there under their roof while I found my feet again, which gave me an opportunity to really make sure I was looking for a role that would satisfy me, keep me happy, and I felt one that would have some impact on people. And applied for loads of stuff and didn't get any of them. And it wasn't until I went out on a hen do with my cohort of fellow PhD students. We've all kind of grown up and dispersed into various roles. We've got someone in government, we've got someone in publishing, we've got someone that runs a startup, and we've got someone that has got moved into consulting. And then there was me as an unemployed person at that point. Hadn't seen them for years and caught up with them and said, don't know what I'm doing, but I genuinely don't know what I'm doing. Had a great night, thought nothing more of it. And then a few weeks after that, one of them, actually my friend that runs the startup, and I'll share her story later on, because she was a PhD student at UCL and set up her startup while she was doing her PhD. She said, Ruth, there's a role becoming open in the Innovation and Enterprise Department. It will be for the job of entrepreneurship advisor, although it had a slightly different title at that point. And I think you'd be really good at it. It's organising workshops for PhD students at UCL. Obviously, we were one, so you know that community really well. And you're highly organised. So I think you'd be a good fit. I was like, entrepreneurship advisor? I haven't got an entrepreneurial bone in my body. My mum's a primary school teacher. My dad worked for the NHS. I couldn't come from a more public sector background if I tried. But I was also at the point where I burnt no bridges, and knowing UCL very well, I wanted to explore this opportunity that had been laid in front of me. And so I went for what I thought was an informal chat with the director of the entrepreneurship team. And halfway through that informal chat, he offered me the job. Now, you've all heard of imposter syndrome. There's enough. I had imposter syndrome for many months. What the hell was I doing working in entrepreneurship? But that is actually a huge advantage, because what I run is the SPERO program, and it's not about getting you to create a startup, although I realize that this is a self-selecting audience. You've all got an interest in entrepreneurship. However, it's about teaching you those fundamental skills that you already have that can be applied in different directions, one of which is being entrepreneurial. And that doesn't mean you have to set up your own business. You can be entrepreneurial and still work for somebody else. Some people call it being intrapreneurial, being entrepreneurial within a business or an organization. And who knows, you might end up starting your own startup one day too. But we'll lay the foundations, we'll give you the knowledge, we'll help you identify the skills and change your mindset to be a little bit more entrepreneurial. And the benefits of that is that it can hugely change the way you view your current research. So it's not necessarily all about your future and what you're going to do in your career. The things we teach, you can take home and apply to your research projects the very next day. I talk about skills. There's huge amounts of overlapping skills between that of a researcher and that of a startup founder. I'll tell you why. If you think about the research methodology, it's all about observing the world around you and identifying a research question that the answer to which is unknown. And you do research, you collect data to answer that question. You, as I say, collect the data, you analyze it, and then you communicate your findings mainly through academic channels, through journals, through conferences, etc. Think about a startup founder. They observe the world around them and they find a gap in the market, whether they were looking for it, which some people do, or some people, accidental entrepreneurs, they find something or they're looking for a product that just doesn't exist. And so they end up creating it. So they're solving a real world problem. And to do that, they make a product, a service, a minimal viable product, and they test it, they collect data and they analyze it. And then they communicate their findings, they communicate with their clients, their customers, their intended audiences. So you see there's a huge amount of overlapping skills that you have as a researcher that are very highly applicable and translational to being entrepreneurial. So SPERO, you've heard about Conception X, you've heard about what UCLB do in terms of support. If you're not necessarily convinced that you have the absolute fundamentals, SPERO will provide a very quick way of learning the fundamentals. And why do I say that? You can come to a SPERO workshop, and we've got 3 levels of workshop. They are imaginatively called SPERO 1, SPERO 2, and SPERO 3. It's suggested you do them in order, although they are effectively standalone workshops. And SPERO 1 is just a 1-day workshop. It's a full day, it's 9:30 to 4:30, but it's an opportunity for you guys to come along and test where you're at with being entrepreneurial. And that SPERO 1 is actually designed to develop entrepreneurial knowledge, entrepreneurial skills, and develop your entrepreneurial mindset. To do that, we use role play, and you will work on a hypothetical startup company. And actually you get to choose. It's like a choose your own adventure journey. So there's 3 different case studies that the participants get to work on, and they're designed to suit different types of students. So we've got one that is a product-based, IP-rich university spin-out company, similar to what you might then go to and take to UCLB. But you've also got the option of working on a service-based industry in a not-for-profit app building, a hypothetical app treating mental illness. And one is a consultancy-based case study where you gather a series of experts and have that. And we'll talk about the different revenue streams that these different types of businesses require. But actually, the fundamental entrepreneurial start points are the same across all three case studies. So step one is to create a hypothetical business plan for your startup. And don't worry, if you've never seen or made a business model or filled in a business model canvas before, that's absolutely fine. We walk you through it. So it's thinking about the case study. You don't have to come up with an idea. There's no pressure there. You're given that, and then you're taken through the process of creating a business model step by step by step. We'll get you thinking about stakeholders, about not just the core stakeholders, but how wide you can do a stakeholder analysis. And it's amazing how many people are involved with all projects. And that one's really important. And we ask people to reflect back after every activity of how they can apply the learnings of each activity, be it filling in a business model canvas or doing a stakeholder analysis, of how they can apply that to their current research. And it's about viewing your research through a different lens. Who is your research having an impact on? Any startup founder will tell you that it's not a linear journey. A PhD is not a linear journey. It's a roller coaster. There's ups, there's downs, there's challenges. Our hypothetical case studies go through the highs and the lows. You start off in one role in the business, it grows, you get promoted, and then there's a disaster within the company. And the final activities you will have to deal with is disaster mitigation, resilience, how you handle a challenge and convey the seriousness of the situation to your stakeholders and to reassure them and maintain the trust. Again, that's super important with as you go through your PhD, through your future careers, of how you handle difficult situations. So we're here just to sow some simple foundations. Come along, role play, take off your researcher hat, put on an entrepreneurial hat, and come and pretend to be somebody else. Within one day, we'll have you thinking a little bit more entrepreneurially. But I want to work on my own idea. I hear you cry. That's absolutely an opportunity that you can do in SPERO 2. SPERO 1, I said, is a full one-day workshop. SPERO 2 is 4 afternoon sessions, consecutive days, Tuesday to Friday, just for a couple of hours. And from the start, you'll be put together in a small group with some of your fellow PhD students across UCL. And by the end of those 4 sessions, you'll be pitching a novel business idea to me, the trainer, and some of my entrepreneurship advisor colleagues. We get feedback. It's incredible how much the participants actually get done, and they feel a real sense of achievement when they pitch their new idea and get really encouraging feedback. And from that, we've had teams formed that just met on a SPERO workshop and build an idea or sow some seeds of just working well together as a team that they want to see what that group could achieve in different ways as well. So that's part 2. You get to work on your own ideas. You're building your team working skills. You are negotiating with others to come up with a common idea. And again, the novel point of that workshop is that you're asked to view the product and service or idea through the lens and eyes of the customer. It's all well and good, and we see this time and time again, is that people come up with great ideas, but actually a product that people don't think they need or they don't want, and therefore it's a great idea, but there's no need or want for it. So by viewing it through the lens of the customer, what problem is this product or service solving for me? What is the impact on the real world? So that's part 2. Part 3, we go back to a role play model. And that may seem like a bit of a backward step because you've already done role play. But that is to level the playing field, because we actually take a deep dive into the I call it the nitty gritty of startup founding. And we want everyone, because coming up with a business idea takes a bit of time, we want to jump straight in, and we'll give you a persona at the start of the workshop. And you will take on that persona for the whole entire workshop. You will either be a PhD student that's involved, again, it's based on a research, university spin-out, IP-rich, product-based case study. And you will be a PhD student that was involved in the project. There's a postdoc role that's involved in the project, and there's a PI role, and you will play the role of that persona throughout the workshop. We'll look at intellectual property. We actually get UCLB members to come and talk on a panel about intellectual property alongside some IP lawyers as well. And we'll take a deep dive into profit and loss projections. So again, you're working on a hypothetical business, but we give you the template spreadsheet. You're creating profit and loss projections for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. And the best part is we'll teach you negotiation skills, because negotiation skills, if you do create a successful startup, you will have to go to investors to ask for money, and part of that will entail a negotiation process. So again, safe space, come along, practice your negotiation skills where you've got no real skin in the game. Come and play entrepreneur. So as I say, you can come to 1, 2, 3, all. I would love to see you all, and I've had a look through the participant list. I see a few names that I've seen come along to SPERO workshops, and so, but the rest of you, I'd love to see you. The great thing is, SPERO 1, we run it practically every week, so there's loads of opportunity for you to find a date where you can take a whole day out of your schedule to come and play entrepreneur for the day. SPERO 2 runs pretty much every month. So for those 4 afternoon sessions, we do ask you block out your schedule so you're fully in attendance. Although we do understand that things crop up, but please, we do ask that people try and fully attend. SPERO 3 is the same, 4 afternoon sessions. That runs once a term. We're going to do it slightly differently over the next academic year. We're going to run 1 session that's 4 afternoon sessions. Later in the year, we are running it as 2 full days, and we're going to see what vibes better with people's schedules and timetables. Riam was kind enough to give SPERO a shout out, and I will return the favor by saying that we've had several SPERO attendees go on and participate in the Conception X program. It's much longer. It's a completely different setup in terms of the amount of time invested. So come and start with SPERO, give it a try, see if you like it. You're only investing 1 full day or 4 afternoons, and then that will give you an idea if you want to pursue more and really get stuck in with a longer program. I've banged on about SPERO. It's for PhD students at UCL. We're opening it up to postdocs as well. So yourself, as I said, you're self-selecting entrepreneurial already. You're at this workshop today. But for anyone else that you interact with, your PhD peers, your doctoral peers, your postdocs that you are working with, tell them about being entrepreneurial, because it's about having impact and applying entrepreneurship to research as well. We have got other programs that you don't necessarily have to be a PhD student for. And those are slightly longer 8-week programs where you can develop a business idea. So there was a question before when Rian was speaking about, can you bring alternative, non-research related business ideas to Conception X? And she said that they tend to need to be deep tech research heavy ideas. If your venture idea is a social enterprise, isn't deep tech, come on over, do our Explore and our Launch programs. Again, 8-week programs, cash prizes available at pitching competitions at the end. If your idea is a little bit more well established, UCL has an accelerator space, or an incubator and accelerator space, should I say. So it's called the Hatchery. There is an application process similar to that of Conception X. It's not just for doctoral students. That's open to UCL recent graduates. We sponsor, we are a startup and innovator visa sponsors as well. So there's that opportunity. And it's a really exciting space. We've got 60 businesses under our wing that we are currently giving advice to help them get up and running and make their businesses a success. You would get a year's worth. In fact, I lie, it's now 2 years worth of full entrepreneurship advice support. Again, no equity is released from your business if you apply and are successful into the Hatchery, and you'll just be surrounded by other baby businesses that are going through the same things that you're going over. There's a structured program. In fact, Capital Enterprise that you'll hear from later are involved, and just you get, I think it's an 8-week, might be 10, structured program that you'll go through an intensive kind of talk every week, and you might get some homework every week. But after that period, then you're kind of let off the leash, and the entrepreneurship advisors are always there to lend an ear, to lend a hand. But you get 2 years worth of support from UCL, equity free. We've got enterprise networks. We've got a really powerful women in enterprise network. So if you're interested in meeting fellow female entrepreneurs, I would suggest joining the Women in Enterprise Network. We have monthly talks about relevant topics. I know one coming up is about working in male-dominated fields and how to make men your ally in male-dominated fields. I think it's quite a controversial title that I'm really intrigued to go along and find out a little bit more about what the speaker has to say about that. So I will wrap it up there. I've bombarded you with loads of opportunities available to you, all run by the Innovation and Enterprise Department entrepreneurship team. And I have just been able to remember there is another program called Accelerate. It's life sciences based, and I believe that's a 7-week program. This has nothing to do with the entrepreneurship team. It's run by the Translational Research Office. So it's life sciences, healthcare related, and they are just accepting applications of interest for, again, a 7-week program that's designed to solve real life translational research problems within the life sciences and medical arena. So that's the Accelerate program run by the Translational Research Office. I hope it's really exciting that there are so many opportunities related to entrepreneurship available to you. I hope to see you at a SPERO workshop coming up. I will put both my email in the chat. Our workshops are the booking registration links have been created. They are not on our website yet. I sent them off to the web team yesterday to get put up, but I will put our website into the chat so you can have a look, and hopefully in the next couple of days the booking links will be live to book on a SPERO workshop. So thank you for your time. More than happy to answer any questions, and I apologize for brain dumping a lot of information, but hopefully you find that exciting. Sharon.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you so much. I found that really interesting and informative, and it's great to see the opportunities that are available at UCL. I like the cautiously, slowly dip your toe in the water aspect of just coming along for a day and seeing if it takes, which is great, because like you say, it's not as huge a commitment as 9 months, but it can always spark ideas of creativity, and you never know what doors it's going to open. So it's wonderful to have this opportunity, and it's great to hear that it runs so regularly as well, so that students can dip their toe in any time throughout the academic year. They don't feel that they have to jump in the first week, but it's always there in the background, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for giving us your talk. I really enjoyed your brain dump, so I look forward to having another brain dump at some time soon.
Absolutely.
If there are any questions, you can of course email Ruth. She will drop her email into the chat for you, or there are some, you can ask Q&As now. If not, our next talk, oh, there's a question that's come up. There you go.
Let me find the Q&A.
Can master's students take participation?
Technically, my remit goes down to research masters, not taught masters. So my advice, and you didn't hear this from me, is to book. And if I catch you, I might say, are you a master's student? And it depends how busy each workshop is. If we've got space, I will let MSc students in. But I didn't say that.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Okay, coming up next, we do have Ariana Rabin from Capital Enterprise. So she's going to be talking about visas and also other bits of administration that you need to know when it comes to setting up a startup. So that will be starting at noon. And so if you want to stretch your legs and get yourself a cup of tea or anything, please feel free to do so now, and we will meet you back here at noon. Thank you again, Ruth. That was wonderful.
Thank you, Sharon.